Helen had worked the overnight shift at Crest Haven Hospital for 11 years. She knew the building the way you only know a place after spending thousands of hours inside it in the dark. She knew which doors stuck in winter and which corridors had cold spots near the floor vents. She knew the particular sound the elevator made on the way down that it never made on the way up. She knew the rhythm of the building at every hour of the night, the way a sailor knows the rhythm of the sea. She was not a person who got lost, which was why the night of the 17th of February was so difficult to explain. It started ordinarily enough. She clocked in at 11, did her handover with the departing day shift, checked her patient list, and began her rounds. The ward she worked was a general medical floor. 12 rooms, 8 occupied that night. Routine medications to administer, observations to complete, the standard documentation that accompanied every shift. She began at room 1 and worked her way down. Everything was normal through the first 6 rooms. Then she reached room 7. She did not recognize the patient inside. This was not immediately alarming. Admissions happened at all hours. A patient could have been moved in during the handover period and simply not yet added to her list. It happened occasionally. She checked her paperwork. No record of a patient in room 7. She stepped inside to introduce herself. The man in the bed was elderly. He was awake and looking at the ceiling with an expression of mild preoccupation, the look of someone working through a problem in their head. She told him her name and asked how he was feeling. He looked at her and said he was fine. Thank you, just waiting. She asked what he was waiting for. He said he was not entirely sure. He said he had been waiting for some time now and had come to the conclusion that the waiting itself was simply part of the process. Helen found this answer mildly concerning in the clinical sense. She noted it and told him she would be back to check on him and continued her rounds. Rooms 8 through 12 were unremarkable. She returned to the nurse's station and flagged the unknown patient in room 7 with the charge nurse. The charge nurse looked at her steadily. She told Helen that room 7 had been empty all evening. Helen walked back down the corridor. Room 7 was empty. The bed was made with fresh linen. The room smelled faintly of the cleaning product used between occupancies. There was no indication that anyone had been in the room recently. Helen stood in the doorway for a moment. She returned to the nurse's station and continued her shift. At 3 a.m, she was completing her second round of observations. She reached room 7. The man was there again. Same position, looking at the ceiling. The same expression of mild preoccupation. He looked at her when she entered. He said he thought she might come back. She asked him how he had gotten into the room. He said he had always been in the room. She asked his name. He told her. She asked who his physician was. He named a physician. She asked how long he had been a patient on the ward. He thought about this for a moment. Then he said that was a more complicated question than it might appear. Helen pulled up the hospital record system on her phone right there in the room. She searched the patient name he had given her. The name appeared in the system, but the record attached to it was not a current admission. The record was from 19 years ago. The patient had been admitted to this ward in the February of that year. He had been in room 7. He had never been discharged. The record simply stopped. No discharge date, no transfer note, no outcome documented, as though the admission had simply continued without resolution. Helen looked up from her phone. The man in the bed was watching her with the patient expression of someone who has waited a long time for a particular moment to arrive. She asked him very carefully what year he thought it was. He told her. It was 19 years ago. Helen stood in room 7 for a long time. Then she asked him if there was anything he needed. He said no, thank you. He said he was comfortable. He said the nurses had always been very kind on this floor. Helen completed her rounds. She documented everything that had happened in her personal notebook rather than the official system because she could not find any clinical language that adequately described what she needed to describe. At 6 in the morning, she did her final check before handover. Room 7 was empty. She stood in the doorway and looked at the neatly made bed. Then she looked at the window. The February light was just beginning to come through the glass, and on the windowsill, in a thin layer of dust that the cleaning staff had missed, there were the clear impressions of 2 hands pressed flat against the surface, as though someone had stood at that window for a very long time, looking out, waiting for a morning that had taken 19 years to arrive. The pediatric ward at Whitmore Hospital was decorated for Christmas every year. This was a tradition that predated most of the current staff. Tinsel along the nurses' station, paper snowflakes hung from the ceiling tiles, a small tree in the family waiting area with lights that blinked in a slow, gentle rhythm that the youngest patients found soothing rather than stimulating. The staff who worked pediatrics understood that environment mattered enormously for children in hospital. That colour and warmth and familiar seasonal markers could do real and measurable good in spaces that were otherwise associated with fear and discomfort. They took the decorating seriously. Donna had worked the pediatric ward for 16 years. She had overseen the Christmas decorating every year for the past 9. She knew which families would bring their own decorations from home to put in their child's room. She knew which children lit up when the ward tree went up and which ones were too unwell to notice. She was good with children in the specific way that went beyond professional training. They trusted her, which was why she paid attention when they told her things. The first child to mention it was a 7-year-old girl named Poppy, who had been admitted with a respiratory condition and who was improving steadily. Poppy was bright and verbal and had already catalogued every decoration on the ward with the systematic thoroughness of a small person who took inventory seriously. She told Donna on the 3rd morning of her admission that there was a boy who came to look at the tree at night. Donna asked what she meant. Poppy said that after the lights went off and the ward got quiet, a boy came and stood by the tree and looked at the lights. She said he was younger than her and that he wore pajamas she did not recognize as belonging to any of the other children on the ward. Donna asked if the boy had said anything to her. Poppy said no. She said he just looked at the tree. She said he seemed to really like the lights. Donna noted this in the gentle, non-committal way that experienced pediatric nurses noted the nighttime observations of young patients. Children in hospital had vivid imaginations that responded to unusual environments. This was well understood and well documented. She thought nothing more of it. Then, a 9-year-old boy in the room adjacent to Poppy's mentioned the same thing 2 days later without any apparent awareness that Poppy had said anything. He described a small boy in unfamiliar pajamas standing by the Christmas tree late at night. Then, a 6-year-old girl at the far end of the ward described the same thing. Same boy, same pajamas, same behavior, standing at the tree looking at the lights. Donna sat with this for a full day before she did anything about it. Then she went to the most senior member of the ward staff, a woman named Jean who had worked pediatrics at Whitmore for 31 years, and who had the specific quality of absolute unshockability that 3 decades of pediatric nursing produced. Donna told her what the children had been saying. Jean listened without expression. When Donna finished, Jean was quiet for a moment. Then she told Donna about a boy who had been a patient on the ward many years before Donna had started working there. He had been admitted in early December. He had been very fond of the Christmas tree. The staff had made a point of positioning him where he could see the lights from his bed because it seemed to bring him genuine comfort during a difficult admission. He had passed away on the ward 3 days before Christmas. Jean said this matter-of-factly in the way of someone who has carried a piece of information for a long time and has made a complete peace with it. Donna asked how long ago this had been. Jean told her it had been 22 years. Donna looked down the ward toward the small tree with its gently blinking lights. She thought about Poppy and the boy next door and the girl at the far end of the ward. 3 children who did not know each other describing the same small figure, in the same unfamiliar pajamas, doing the same quiet thing in the middle of the night. She thought about a boy who had loved the lights. She thought about 22 Christmases. She did not find it frightening. She found it something else entirely, something that she did not have a clean clinical word for, but that felt, in a way she could not fully articulate, like the right ending to a story that had needed one for a very long time. That Christmas, she made sure the tree lights stayed on all night, every night until the decorations came down in January, just in case. Dr. Raymond Holt had worked at Ashford General Hospital for 38 years. He had been a physician of the old school, thorough, unhurried, deeply attentive in an era that increasingly valued speed over depth. He had known his patients the way family doctors once knew their patients, as whole people with whole lives, rather than presenting conditions attached to names. He had retired at 72. He had died 14 months later. His colleagues marked his passing with a service in the hospital chapel and a small notice in the staff newsletter. He had been well liked, more than well liked. He had been the kind of physician whose absence left a specific shape in the place he had occupied. The ward he had worked most consistently throughout his career was the general medicine ward on the 2nd floor. 6 months after his death, the staff on that ward began noticing something. It started with small things. A consultant making rounds would arrive at a patient's bedside and find that the notes had already been reviewed, charts flagged with questions already answered, observations already made and documented in a handwriting that nobody on the current staff recognized. The first few times this happened, it was attributed to administrative confusion, notes mixed up, documentation from another ward accidentally filed in the wrong place. But the handwriting was consistent, and it appeared on documents that could not have come from another ward because they referenced specific patients by name and specific details of their individual conditions. A junior doctor named Priya noticed it first because she was methodical about her documentation and noticed immediately when notes appeared in a patient file that she had not written, and that nobody else on the current team had written either. She brought it to the ward sister. The ward sister looked at the handwriting for a long time. Then she went to her office and returned with an old staffing document from several years prior. She placed it next to the mysterious notes. The handwriting was identical. Priya asked whose handwriting it was. the ward sister told her. Priya looked at the notes again. The observations documented were accurate. Whatever had been written about her patients was clinically correct, and in several cases had flagged early warning signs that Priya herself had not yet picked up on. She stood at the nurse's station for a long time. Then she asked the ward sister how long this had been happening. The ward sister said since about 6 weeks after he had passed. Priya asked if anyone had reported it. The ward sister said no. Priya asked why not. The ward sister was quiet for a moment. Then she said that every patient whose notes had been reviewed in this way had done better than expected given their initial presentation. Every single one. She said that whatever was happening, it was not causing harm. It was doing the opposite. Priya looked at the ward around her, at the patients in their rooms, at the ordinary business of a medical floor going about its day. She thought about a physician who had spent 38 years learning to pay attention. She thought about what 38 years of that kind of attention might leave behind in a place. She thought about patients flagged early, about outcomes better than expected. She picked up the notes she had been reviewing and continued her rounds. She did not report what she had seen. She did not stop checking for the handwriting in the files, and she did not find it strange that on the mornings when she arrived and found those careful notes already made, the day felt a little more manageable than the days when she did not, as though something in the building was still paying attention, still rounding, still doing the work it had done for 38 years, because some habits, she came to believe, ran deeper than the life that had formed them, and some physicians, it turned out, were not entirely finished with their patients, even after everything that should have stopped them